Hey there, little bunny. I hope you're having a peaceful week. And if not, I have good news for you. Me neither. Which is why we're going to fix that, yeah? Because we fix things in the garden. So what's the problem you and I have right now? Feeling buzzy and hectic, needing a chance to de-stress, just relax and find some peace. I'm not sure what's causing you a buzzing, hectic brain right now. But I know for me, it's going viral on TikTok again. It always messes with my head when it happens, and I get addicted to notifications. I always go check in to see what's going on. It's just a totally manic thing to happen. And yesterday I was making the locked audio for Patreon, which was a sleep aid, ironically, and my heart was absolutely racing while I was editing it, and I was fidgeting, and it was just so uncomfortable. And of course, it didn't help that I had an extraordinary amount of caffeine in my body. But I was just going totally crazy. But I went out to socialize and got some physical touch with some dancers, like I love to do. And then I came back home and I made myself a nice big pot of tea. Phone, iPad, and laptop all far out of reach in the other room. Just some time to totally unplug. Just me, just the tea, and one more thing, which I'll tell you in a second, because you and I are about to put away our devices, make a cup of tea, and then do this third secret activity together. And I really can't wait for it. This is surely going to be one of my absolute favorite episodes to make. But first, our quote of the day, of the week, I suppose. And then I'll end with the poem that I wrote just for you. And there are some excellent surprises in store for you on the way. So here's your quote. It's from an accomplished classical music conductor named Daniel Barenboim. When playing music, it is possible to achieve a unique sense of peace. We're not going to be playing music today, little bunny. But that third thing that I did yesterday when I unplugged, I put away my devices, I made myself some tea, and then I listened to some classical music for a long time. That's our activity together this week. You and I are going to make some tea, put our phones on Do Not Disturb, out of reach if you can. I hope you have wireless headphones, but at least put it out of sight. And then we'll listen together to some beautiful, wonderful music. So if right now you're listening while you're multitasking, I want you to pause the episode and come back to it later. If you're at work or at school or if you're driving, I want you to skip this episode for now, because I really want us to be 100% present together, doing absolutely nothing else distracting us, just finding, like the quote, a unique sense of peace. And if you don't like tea, you can pick a beverage of your choice, preferably one that's not caffeinated. Ice water is a great choice. Anything to relax you and bring you peace. I've already got mine. Listen to this. Oh, that was an ugly sip sound. I guess I'm not that good at that type of ASMR. But that's delicious. So why don't you catch up, go make yours, and I'll tell you more about the classical music that we're going to be listening to. So classical music, believe it or not, is actually my favorite kind of music. I'm not sure I can explain why, but if I could only listen to one genre for the rest of my life, which is of course a terrifying hypothetical, but it would certainly be classical music for me without a doubt. And I think actually I'll wait to tell you more until you make your beverage. So why don't you go ahead and pause the podcast here, at least until you finish getting set up. And I forbid you from unpausing the podcast until you have your drink in a room with privacy and all your devices are on Do Not Disturb and are out of sight, ideally completely out of the room even. You can hide them under a pillow or a blanket. Don't put it in your pocket where you normally check it. And just forget all about it. Don't touch it. Be 100% present with me. And together, like the quote, when listening to classical music, it's possible to achieve a unique sense of peace. Okay, welcome back. Oh, now I can ramble a little bit about classical music. That'll be fun. One of the greatest things about it is that it began 400 years ago, and it continues even to the present day with composers that are still living, actually. And I want to take you through time. We're going to start with a piece from 1720, and we'll end with a piece that was written literally this past year from a composer I guarantee you've heard of. So this first piece, the 1721, by the way, why am I calling it a piece and not a song? It's because a song is something you sing. So because there's no person singing in this piece of music, it's not a song. I'm not just being pompous. It's like calling a coffee a kind of energy drink. Is it? I mean, kind of, I guess. It's not really a big deal, but I'm going to call it a piece of music, and don't worry, it's not me being snobbish. So this first piece, let's get to listening. 1720. This is in the Baroque era, and this Baroque composer is named Johann Sebastian Bach. And it's the Brandenburg Concerto number 3. I'll put a link to the royalty-free download in the episode description. Okay? This is the first minute or so of it. Ready? Here we go. That's a really great one. And now a little listening test, little bunny. Were you listening well? Did you notice how there's a lot going on at once in that piece? It's almost like everyone is playing a different thing, and it all locks together. I like to think of it like clockwork, and this is a key feature of the Baroque era of classical music. Imagine you take apart a watch or a clock or something, and you see all these beautiful gears working in tandem, each doing their own bit. That's the Baroque era, and Bach especially is like this. He's considered the greatest Baroque composer. And again, Baroque is the earliest era in classical music. And then as time passed and the world changed, so did music. And after the Baroque period, we have the classical period. I know that's a bit confusing, that there's a classical period within the world of classical music, but I didn't make up the names. So the classical period is the second era of classical music. It comes right after Baroque. And you know that intricate clockwork that I was describing? Well, that's done, because now it's about simplicity. And there's a kind of formal elegance to everything. And it's also still pretty introverted. It is emotional, but it's emotional deep down under some layers of armor. It's a bit stoic on the surface. So this next piece of music is a piece of music from the very end of the classical era. I might even be cheating. Some people might say it's a little bit past the classical era, but I had to include this composer because he may very well be the greatest composer of all time, by the name of, can you guess who it is? It's not Mozart. It's Ludwig van Beethoven. I can't pronounce it right. Beethoven, as I will say in my American accent. And if I could only take one composer on me to the island, to the deserted island, I would take Beethoven. So I already said that classical music would be the one genre I hold on to. If I could only hold on to one composer, I would hold on to Beethoven. So, of course, he's going to be included in Little Bunny Lindy Tea Time, yeah? Okay, this is from Beethoven's third piano concerto called The Emperor. Download link will be in the description. Here we go. Let's take a nice big sip of tea and a breath. Here we go. Wow, little bunny. I'm covered in goosebumps. I don't know about you, but this is really special to me. And I truly believe Beethoven has created some of the greatest things in the history of all art. When I listen to him, I feel inspired to achieve great things, to do something truly incredible with my life. I have an extraordinary amount of potential, little bunny, as you know. And when I talk about how I want to grow the garden into one of the greatest things that even exists, I really mean it. I'm channeling my inner Beethoven. I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm going there. because human achievement is the most inspiring thing in the world to me. The concept of the best of the best. And I want you to hold on tight to me because that's where we're headed. I don't know how it will grow. I'm making it up as I go. But we're still in the early days of something incredible. And I want you with me. Okay, a quick sip of tea. You want to hear this? Let me try the second time for my ASMR. Is that better? Do I have a future there? Will I become the greatest of the greatest at sipping tea into a microphone? I don't know. We'll see where it goes, little bunny. Okay, next up, I'm sure you can tell that I'm very passionate about classical music, and I absolutely cherish this next piece of music. It's very similar to the one we just heard, but it has an even more special place in my heart because it might be this piece of music that awakened my love for classical music in a very unhappy time in my life when I was on the road, actually, without any freedoms. On a very single day, I had the opportunity to do whatever I wanted for like 1 hour in Chicago. There was a very brief window of time. So I literally ran to the closest bookstore that sold music. And something compelled me. I could have gone to any section, but I went to the classical section and I just grabbed a CD at random. This is back in the age of CDs. And by some divine intervention of good fortune, this was the CD that I grabbed, and it could not have been more perfect. It was exactly what I needed. And if you're going through a challenging period of your life, little bunny, let me introduce you to this piece of music. This is what pulled me through. It's Pyotr Tchaikovsky's 6th Symphony, titled Pathetique, which means emotional. And it's from the Romantic period. So we had Baroque and we had classical, and next up is Romantic. And that's what the Romantic period is all about. Emotions, raw emotions, where the composers and the musicians are bearing their souls open to the world. I want you to listen with me as we share a vulnerable moment together as Daddy and Little Bunny. And of course, if you need it later, the download is in the notes. It's okay to let your feelings out with me. Feeling our emotions is one of the greatest parts of life. And sometimes it's also the hardest. So take a breath with me. I need a sip of tea after that piece. Okay, let's see if I'm getting better. You ready? Let's see how I do. That was kind of like the second one, is it? I don't know. I don't know if there's a future in tea sipping ASMR in the garden. But hey, we're making it up as we go. You never know what's going to happen. Okay, so we've heard Baroque. We've heard classical. We've now just heard romantic. Next up is modern. This is where things get a little crazy. And something truly horrible happened to classical music in the early 1900s. The philosophy of what kind of music we should be writing split into two parts. There were those that believed it was time to write music that was grotesque, ugly on purpose, and we're supposed to pretend at first that it's beautiful, and eventually we will find the beauty in the ugliness. And not only did they write like this, they dismissed anyone who believed in such a thing as inherent beauty. And that's who the other camp of composers was. They were the ones who carried on the torch from the composers we've been listening to. Bach gives it to Beethoven, gives it to Tchaikovsky, and then it's passed on to this other sect of modern composers who believes in inherent beauty. And do you know who won the battle? Because the first camp hated that the second camp was writing beautiful music. Well, they won. And the torch that was passed down from the great classical composers was extinguished in the modern period. And it's because of that reason, I believe, that we think of classical music as being dead, because all these great composers we've been listening to are dead. And it's because the composers who would have been descended from them, well, they don't exist. If you look up the living composers who are steeped in the tradition of these expressionists, so to speak, the first camp, you can go look them up on Spotify. And I kid you not, the most successful classical music composers of our day, for each one listener that they have, there are 500 listeners for Taylor Swift or Kanye West. And so, as you can tell, I'm very bitter about this schism that happened and the animosity that one side had for the other. Not just anger at them, but actively trying to prevent people from writing beautiful music. And even in the universities and conservatories of our day, the composers revere this first camp of composers, and they all write disgusting music, and they teach their students to write disgusting music. And it's a real shame. The one silver lining is that our film composers today are absolutely incredible. I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer, and he talks openly about being influenced by the old greats, the classical greats. So there is hope, but I want to share, to represent this modern period, I believe one of the last composers, classical composers, strictly music for the stage, the last one who carried the torch that Bach and Beethoven and Tchaikovsky passed on to him. And this composer, this modern composer, the last of the ones carrying the torch, incorporated jazz into his classical music. And a little extra treat for you, little bunny. is that I will be playing this one just for you. Here's a recording of me playing the beginning of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Feeling more calm, little bunny? I'm going to start wrapping this up. I hope you had fun. I certainly did. But I've got one more surprise in store for you. I'm going to do announcements, then read the poem, and there's a little something special at the very, very end. First up, my next episode of Love and Ligature premieres live on YouTube on September 18th at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the New York City time zone. You can either Google the conversion, 6 p.m. New York time to and then your country, or you can look for the countdown clock that I'll post on Instagram, or you can go to YouTube and the video, once it's uploaded, will have a little countdown timer as well. It's a lot of fun, these premieres. We have a live chat room. I'll be there if you want to hang out and chat with me, and we'll listen to the new episode. It's a really, really good one. And it actually doesn't require too much knowledge of the previous episodes. So if you don't really want to go back to the beginning, you can probably jump right in with this one. It's going to be episode 7, I believe. And next up, the locked audio from this past week, like I mentioned before, is my third sleep aid audio. If you want one for free, the very first post I made on Patreon is a sleep aid. You don't have to sign up, just scroll all the way to the bottom. You have to scroll a bit of a ways now. There's so much content. It's wonderful. It's patreon.com/Lindy's Garden or Google Lindy's Garden Patreon. It's 18 and up, so please don't join if you're not 18. And if you're not 18, just wait. It'll be here in the future. The content isn't going anywhere. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you're not already, and follow me on Instagram as well as TikTok, because TikTok may go down without a warning, as they like to do. If you need to email me, you can email lindy@lindysgarden.com or daddy@lindysgarden.com. If the email doesn't go through, just DM me on Instagram, but please understand that I often can't reply. But I promise I will read all messages and I will enjoy them. They mean a lot to me. So send away. And now I'm going to slow us back down. And I'll read for you the poem I wrote for you today. I already know your favorite composer. He's the one who wrote the podcast closer. You love him a lot, if not for his music, for his chocolatey voice and how he chooses to use it. He's a writer and composer, musician and poet, and he looks good when dancing, though he prefers not to show it. And how can one man achieve so much success? Does it make you feel jealous that he's always the best? But it's not to beat others. It's no competition. He just follows his passions, makes real his visions. And his vision is you, to be here for his bunny, to be sexy and wise and occasionally funny. And so it's for you that he wrote you this song. It's your favorite tune, though it's not very long. Your favorite composer on whom you depend to tell you he loves you at each podcast's end. I love you, little bunny. Enjoy the song that I wrote.